coming up on the Empowered Woman podcast.
Now, what I tell my clients as well too is like, okay, job ops, not the way to go. Upwork, not the way to go. LinkedIn, so many scams. And so I teach something completely different. And also too, right? I'm sure you and I are the same of, we want to start a business to have freedom, whether that's financial freedom, freedom with our time, our schedule. And when you go and apply for jobs, you're now an employee, you're not an entrepreneur. So I empower women to actually be in control of everything, when they work, who they work with, how much they charge, and teach the complete opposite. But for a lot of women, it's that confidence piece. It's that mindset piece. Because I think they feel more safe in sticking to what they know, which is applying for jobs. So what I would do is actually, shocker, talk to their ideal client in the DMs, which I get that scared the crap out of me as well too. But, years later, it's like, I enjoy it. I used to hate it. I love connecting with people now.
Welcome to the Empowered Woman podcast, the #1 show on personal growth, visibility, and profit for women entrepreneurs. If you're wanting to get empowered to be seen, stand out on social media, stages, TV, and more to make an impact with your voice in business, you're in the right place. I am so glad that you're here. My name is Marta Spurk, and I'm your host, empowerment coach, visibility and marketing expert, and all things motivation extraordinaire. Welcome again, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi, Jade. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yes, of course. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, me too. So I have been looking around your stuff. I love what you're all about and excited to dive in. Why don't you start by telling us who you are and what you do?
Yeah, so I am a virtual assistant / business coach. Mostly work with virtual assistants. I've outsourced that to my amazing co-coach team. I've expanded it so I can focus more so on the business coaching and helping VAs either pivot or scale their business. And I started out as a virtual assistant myself. So it's very near and dear to my heart.
I love that. And it's so, I always say this, I sound like a broken record, but the beauty of these interviews is learning the journey that is never linear, and we go through twists and turns, and it's fun to hear how unique everybody's journeys are. But then there's the common thread of, we didn't come out of the womb doing what we're doing right now. So that gives hope to the people listening that are always going through all the transitions in their business, or still even thinking about launching, that it's going to be messy. You're not going to know all the answers, but you learn along the way. So
100%.
I love to hear how you got started into this. So starting as a VA and then the evolution of you becoming a business coach. So that's amazing. Tell us.
Yeah, so I started, actually left my 9 to 5 January 2018. I had my second son August of 2017 and went back to work. I think it was like for 6-8 weeks. And I'm like, I just cannot do this. So that was my biggest motivation, but we were definitely needing 2 incomes. And, I kind of did the math and talked to my now ex-husband into it. I was like, okay, we can save this on daycare. And, I'm one of those mamas too. And I know everyone, like my boss was like, could not wait to go back to work and be away from her kids. And that was not me. I don't judge anyone that is like that, but I just didn't want to miss out on any of that. I knew at that time that was going to be my last kid. And I wanted to soak all that up like I was able to with my first son when I was going to school, college. So left the 9 to 5 and did land a big client that replaced 2/3 of my income. And I was like, I don't care. I'll figure it out. I'm a hard worker. So I bartended, I cleaned out construction sites, and I was very stubborn. I'm like, I don't need help. I'm a hard worker. Anything I've ever put my mind to, I've accomplished it, which big ego. That was not the way to go, because obviously an online business is way different than anything I've ever done. And so about 18 months in, I'm like, oh shit, I'm going to have to actually go and invest in a coach. But because, we were struggling for that year and a half, our savings were gone, like everything besides my retirement. So I had 1,400 in there, and to work with my coach for 1 month was 1,200. And so, I told her, I was like, hey, this is all I've got. I'll do my best. But it was definitely a leap of faith, and it worked out great. Within 3 weeks, I was making $3,000. And, I was kind of stuck there for a few months, had a lot of mindset struggles, but now have obviously built a very successful business. And it's crazy to think that it's been 5.5 years since I left the corporate world. So
That's amazing. Wow, what a journey. And you talked about so many different elements that I'd love to unpack that there. For one, having that conversation with your partner about, how are we going to make this work? Because again, back to what I said in the beginning, we see a lot of the fluff and a lot of, the good times when we go through
Yeah.
social media and people saying, I'm in the Bahamas and I'm making a million figures and
Yes.
no one's talking about those hard moments when you actually have to pinch pennies and write down all your expenses and then come to the
Yeah.
realization that, hey, I need to hire someone to help me because this is not like anything else that I've done. I joke that, I wish I loved school and I loved studying and I aced all the tests, and going into entrepreneurship, it's a rude awakening because it's not about studying and passing the test. Like there's so much more that goes into it that you
Yeah.
learn along the way. But anyways, and in the mindset of learning, you had to hire someone, which I'd love for you to share a little bit more about how that was for you, because I know some people are super resistant. Some people, I think, go off the deep end and they invest in everything and they get in a lot of debt. So there's a
Yeah.
balance to that as well. And then we'll get into investing in a VA. But I'd love to hear your take on this leap of faith that you took and how all that worked out.
Yeah. So honestly, I couldn't even put anything on credit. Like credit cards were maxed out. Besides like maybe a few hundred. And it was kind of this endless cycle of like paying off the credit card and then having to use it to buy more. And gosh, I remember too going to get groceries and, every morning I'd have to log into my account to actually make sure the money was there. Like, did a bill come out or, something unexpected, and the embarrassment of getting groceries and having that card decline. So for me, I had a total mental breakdown. It was September of 2019. I remember calling my mom and I was bawling. I'm like, I'm feeling my family. My marriage was not, that's a whole other thing. But it was not in a good spot either. And I just felt like the world was crumbling around me. And I knew I needed money. So I was like, okay, I could either spend months and months and months trying to apply for 9 to 5s, which I kept getting told, I didn't want to go back to the corporate world either. I had gotten a taste of being at home for the last 18 months. I didn't want to do that. And I know too, like the employment process, right? Like applying for a bunch of different jobs. And, even the 9 to 5 that I left, it didn't even require a degree. And that was part of my frustration too. Like, why did I spend, $50,000 on a degree when I can't even get a job in it? Yeah. And I just knew I didn't want to go back to that. So my other option obviously was investing. And so I think because he saw my determination and, saw how hard I was working, I think I'd really proven to him how much I wanted it. And I think too, he liked having me at home, like being able to like even just clean or have dinner in the crock pot. Like it took responsibility off of him of having to help out. So honestly, and also too, that was my retirement and there wasn't much. I control the finances and he always trusted me with that. So there wasn't much pushback, but obviously now being a coach, I hear all the things like my husband won't let me. Oh, that drives me nuts. Like
Yeah.
I get it, but he never was like, oh, I'm not going to let you do it. He was like, okay, it's your money. If you want to
Yeah.
do it and like, let's try it kind of a thing. So that convincing him wasn't really that hard.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. Well, and I'd love to hear also how you got this thing off the ground because lots of people, moms, I see this in entrepreneur groups all the time. I need to start making some money. First suggestion is do some VA work.
Yeah.
Okay. How do you actually get started? How do you put that out there? Because then there's the other concern. Well, there are a million different VAs
Yeah.
to choose from. Why would they pick you? How do you position yourself? So how did you do it? And then obviously I'd love to hear how you coach women to get started on that path.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I mean, I had no clue what I was doing. So it was like small local businesses. So I got 2 clients, and I'm in Iowa as well too. So small farm town, it's not like I'm in a big city where people have money. So 2 small local businesses, they paid me 5 hours a month, $15. So I'm like, okay, 2 clients, but that's $150. Like, right. Especially now with the economy, I'm like, that wouldn't even be a grocery trip.
Right. No.
So it was so crazy and like just always emailing. And I realized it was more of like busy work versus productive because I didn't know what to do. And I remember being a job or in Facebook groups and saying job ops, and there was like 100 people that would apply to it. So what I learned, and I think at the time, obviously, once I hired a coach and got really quick results, I was like, oh, I should have invested sooner. But I know that God had me like go through that for a reason, and that was to obviously, I mean, I never thought I would be a VA coach, but I had to go through that trial and error to be like, this doesn't work. And so now what I tell my clients as well too is like, okay, job ops, not the way to go. Upwork, not the way to go. LinkedIn, so many scams. And so I teach something completely different. And also too, right? I'm sure you and I are the same of we want to start a business to have freedom, whether that's financial freedom, freedom with our time, our schedule. And when you go and apply for jobs, you're now an employee, you're not an entrepreneur. So I empower women to actually be in control of everything, when they work, who they work with, how much they charge, and teach the complete opposite. But for a lot of women, it's that confidence piece. It's that mindset piece. Because I think they feel more safe in sticking to what they know, which is applying for jobs. So what I would do is actually, shocker, talk to their ideal client in the DMs, which I get that scared the crap out of me as well too. But years later, it's like I enjoy it. I used to hate it. I love connecting with people now. So hopefully that answered your question of like
Oh yeah. No, it totally does. It's super helpful to hear the different things that you did that didn't work, and that, some people may still say that is the way, or that some people may think that is the way. Obviously, there's no one way of doing things, but it's really helpful to hear from somebody that has succeeded. What are the things to steer clear from? And I have to say, the people that I have in my team, I want to say the majority of them, some of them were referrals from other clients, but the majority of them, they actually reached out to me and they said, "Hey, do you need help?" And at the time I was like, "No, I don't." But then that planted the seed, right? For then later being like, "Actually, can we talk about this? Can you tell me more about your services?" Which leads me to my next question. The flip side, the mindset of business owners hiring a VA. I know I was resistant to it because it's a financial commitment that you make to someone else. And then you're forced to get organized and delegate. So there's so many monsters that come with it.
Yes.
Now I have to pay for this, but are they actually doing a good job? I can do it better, but then I don't have the free time. So how do you handle those objections and also help your clients handle those objections when they're working with clients?
Yeah. So it's so crazy because, I've been on both sides of it. And I think that's really helpful that I started as a VA, because it was just one of those things where even when I first went into coaching, that was my goal. I wanted to be like my VA coach and give other women that opportunity. So obviously when my business was a lot smaller, it was a lot easier to hire my own clients. And I still do that. I think on my team, there's only 2 people out of the 10 that were referrals from my business coach, but the rest all went through RSA. And my very first RSA client ever, I actually ended up hiring her to be my very first VA. So for me, it was just kind of, I knew. But for my VAs, I always tell them like create a piece of content. So whoever you admire, and mine always goes to Vera Wang. I love her wedding dresses, but of like, do you think that Vera Wang answers all of her own emails or all of her own DMs or all of her content? No. And so I think for business coaches, no matter what you do, you have to remember that as well of, okay, you can't scale if you're doing everything. And I get that it's scary because obviously our businesses, I always say like my business is my third baby. And it is really scary, but the best thing, and I've done both where I've hired, more advanced VAs that I'm going to pay more. But usually, again, when I had less clients, I was able to do this. If they love my program, and obviously the strategies that we teach work, but a lot of them that I was coaching, they had mindset issues. So once I would hire them, their mindset would like flip because they're like, oh my gosh, my coach hired me, even though I wasn't able to land a client. And then their business exploded. And so I think it's just like having that one person say yes really helps them. But also too, with a new VA, it's awesome because you can start them off obviously at a lower paying point. You can kind of mold them into what you want.
100%. Yeah, they learn with you, and it's in their best interest to do what you're asking because they're getting experience, and then you become such a valuable asset that
Yeah.
you can be training another VA and grow in the company and become
Yeah.
more of a leader, manager position because you started from the beginning. And you mentioned RSA. Is that one of your programs? Tell us more.
Yeah, so it's actually my entry level for like beginner to intermediate. So it's for women that are wanting to leave their 9 to 5s within a certain amount of time, obviously very quickly. Or we also get moms too that are stay-at-home moms. They don't need a second income, but they're very driven, where they're like, okay, I want something for myself.
Yeah.
Uh, and have my own money, or we're getting by, but maybe they want to go on like family vacations or something like that. And so it's amazing because like my VA coach, we always have this thing about like competition. And
Mm,
my VA coach actually turned into my business coach, and she actually helped me build out RSA. And that for me, I love it because it's like, I don't really believe in competitors. People are going to
yeah.
work with you for their own reason. And it's really expanded. I mean, my first launch, I think, and it was also good timing. It was during COVID.
Mm,
It was like the end of February of 2020. And I don't watch the news. So it was like all these women were coming to me like, okay, I got laid off or I got fired. So
wow.
I think that played a big part in it as well, too, of like it
Mm,
exploding of like people wanting to be at home. But my first launch was 40K. And, now we make more than that in 1 month. And we've helped over 350 women in the last few years, and we get our clients really great results. But one thing we always preface as well too is it's not like a passive course where it's this is for women that are wanting a big transformation. They're wanting consistent 5K plus months, and that kind of sets us apart from the more affordable like passive programs. And you've got the biggest thing with it too is the one-on-one coaching aspect. So you've got a coach there with you in the trenches. You can Vox with them 24/7, and you're not feeling alone and just throwing modules your way. I'm like, okay, go figure it out on your own.
yeah. Yeah, that makes a huge difference, especially as you're starting out and some people that have no knowledge of the online world. Because when we're talking, you open up your business as a coach or whatever, sometimes people have already been around. But it is very common, and correct me if I'm wrong, just like what you're saying, for the VAs, up and coming VAs, being somebody that is either a stay-at-home mom or somebody that's coming from corporate that are not used to this whole thing. And then they have to promote
Yeah.
themselves and make connections, things that they're not used to. So having that support instead of figuring everything out on their own is huge. Now, I'm curious, as the VAs that you're helping and coaching, as they grow, have you found that they end up opening up their own coaching business or veering off in a different direction, and that was kind of like the springboard to something else?
Yeah.
What's the evolution of this?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's what I love about the online space. It's not like corporate, like climbing the corporate ladder, and there's not really a clear path.
Right,
Uh,
there is.
yeah. So, and that's actually why right now I've got another program that like helps them either pivot or scale their VA business. But yeah, we've had RSA graduates that like find like their skill set. So like either pivoting into like an OBM role. I've had other clients where they decide to be a VA coach themselves. I'm trying to think, like I've got a VIP one-on-one coaching client right now where she likes doing a little bit of both. So she's actually got a 6-week mentorship that she does, but then she's also got a bunch of retainer clients, and she actually does my content as well. And she does an amazing job. So yeah, for some people, they don't want to do, just coaching. They still like that VA, and, that percentage can really look like whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. Well, and now I think it would be nice to clarify and explain the difference between an OBM and a VA. And we know if there's like a gray area in there, because it really depends on the business owner and the VA. Just like you said, if you hire somebody that's just getting started, they can kind of do whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we mold them, which is really nice. So tell us more what the difference is, and especially for someone listening that is considering hiring someone, what should they be looking for? I guess that could be my next question is, how do you find a good VA for you? How do you determine that? But anyways, I'll let you take it from
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, no, you're good. So, VA versus OBM. VA like, in your business, if you hired a VA, like you're giving them specific tasks to do. But an OBM, they're more so your right-hand person. I have a OBM. She's not super tech savvy, and that's okay, because she's amazing at what she does. So she's always a few steps ahead of me. So she just knows my business, my setup that I've already created. So I give her my October calendar with all of my events times, and then she actually goes and schedules those events, whether it's in Facebook event. She creates like the email sequence for that. So it's more of them taking charge. And then also, just like a VA, you can have like more of a tech VA. So I have one of my co-coaches, actually, she does VA coaching as well, has her own VA coaching business. She's a VA coach on my team. And then she's also an OBM. I know, she's got 3 kids at home too. She's like a superhero. I don't even know how she does it all. And she gets her clients amazing results too. But she's like my kind of on call, like tech OBM. So for ClickUp, our onboarding process, like people weren't signing the contracts, and I'm super busy. I don't have time. We didn't really have a setup in mind, of like a process to make sure people were actually signing contracts, which obviously awful. So she went and created a whole process in ClickUp for me. So everything is automated and it's hands-free. All we have to do, the coach, we have a whole process. She built an SOP and an operating procedure for me. And the co-coaches just know to move them to offboarding. They get an offboarding email, and it saves me so much time. So then to answer your second question, like how to find the best fit, I would say if you haven't hired a VA yet, you're a brand new business, or, maybe even you just got a few clients, you can definitely hire like more of an entry level VA. Again, kind of what I said, mold them into, and like have them grow with you. A lot of VAs want to do that, and help you expand. So you're not constantly having to, hire more VAs. But then if you're more advanced and you're kind of like me, like, okay, people aren't signing contracts, so I don't have time to do this, hire an OBM to kind of just take over your business so you can focus on whatever it is that you need to focus on, whether it's the one-on-one coaching or for me, I'm doing a podcast and writing a book and building out another container in my ascension model. So it's more hands-off for me.
That makes a lot of sense. And what is, in terms of like budgeting for this, what is like an average of what somebody could expect to be investing in a VA or even an OBM for the month? Just ballpark so people can start considering it.
Yeah. So minimum wise, the smallest package with like a brand new VA is gonna run you about $500 a month. And that's for 20 hours a month. So 5 hours a week. And then obviously more advanced depending on like what they do. If it's more of tech, maybe they've been a VA for 2 or 3 years. Our clients are charging about $40 an hour. And again, that's between that 25 to 40. And then OBM easily is going to be starting off about like $40 an hour. Again, minimum of 20 a month. So about 800. But just remember too, that the more that someone costs, the more it's going to be hands off. You're not going to have to really train them. Obviously, there's going to be those first few weeks where you're understanding like how you guys work and teaching them your specific process. So like when I hired someone on for the DMs, which is so dumb of me because I was a VA, but I was like, oh, they just know what they're doing. Well, they do. They have their own systems and processes, but they still need to know my language and the DMs and what my expectations were and all of that. So there is going to be, about 2 to 4 weeks of that first month of just, getting the flow of things. But yeah, the more that someone's going to charge, you can expect quicker and better results.
Yeah, for sure. As it is usually the case. We were just talking about
Coaching.
this before we started recording, that we both use Kajabi for our business, and it is a platform that costs more than several platforms, but it also has lots of features and it saves you lots of headaches. And we were saying you usually get what you pay for. Not always, but when it comes to VA and this type of work, it makes a lot of sense depending on their skill set, like you were saying, and the experience, the amount of time that they've been working, all of that comes into play. So you're writing a book. Tell us more. When is it coming out?
Oh my gosh. Well, it seems like everything. I mean, I've been doing this for like 2 years. And every year I'm like, this is going to be the year. So even at the beginning of this year, I'm like, it's going to be the year. But, we're in the process of like trying to get our house built and buying another local business. And now I'm building out another container for my clients. So it will happen. It doesn't look like it's going to be coming out at the end of the year, like the goal that I've set, but also too, kind of like what we were talking about before we hit record. There's always different pathways and different things. And I think one thing that I've learned is like other things just kind of took more of a top priority, but it's definitely something that will happen. I kind of do it in my free time, but like today I'm all dolled up because I'm going to be recording modules for my new container because that's what the people or my past RSA clients are asking for. I'm going to give the people what they want. So
yes, that's the life of an entrepreneur.
yes,
Leave the room, listen to your audience, and give them what they want. That's foolproof way to getting your income going. Awesome. And you do have a free resource to offer our listeners. I'll be sure to put that in the show notes. What is it?
Yeah, so it's called Rebel Energy Podcast. I actually got the name from my human design coach, and she was telling me everything. She's like, "You've got that rebel energy," and it's so crazy because I was literally so stuck at like figuring out a name. And I think too, right? Like if we decide to be entrepreneurs, we are rebels because 1% of the population, I know in the US at least, are entrepreneurs, and we are rebels because we're going against the grain of really what society wants us to do, and we're doing what we want. So season 1, episode 1, if you guys are a new VA, definitely start there. And then it's in chronological. So it kind of starts off with my story, what I've already shared, and then goes into like the very beginning steps of what you need to do.
Awesome. I'll make sure and put that in so people can tune in. And now I'm super curious, what are the elements in your human design that created the rebel, or that your coach let you know that you had that energy?
Yeah. So actually, it's so crazy. I was born in 1149. And so when I printed off my thing, and I can't even think of what it is now, but it's, what is it? It's like someone that's like really, I can't even think of the actual title of it, but like very motivated, energy driven. And I'm like, yes, I felt so aligned with that. I'm like, that's so me. And then when she was actually looking over it on our call, she's like, well, you were born at 11:49 p.m. So when we changed it, I was a projector. And at first I struggled because a projector, depending on like what you're reading, it's like they need breaks, they take naps. I'm like, I do not like take a nap. What? And so as I actually learned a little bit more about me as a projector, I'm like, yes, I'm very easily, like I give a lot of energy, but also too, I do need to take a step back and kind of recharge. And for me, my recharging looks a little bit different, right? Than like taking a nap. So I feel a lot more aligned with that now. But at first I was just very against what it was.
Oh yeah. Human design is a whole like journey of learning to witness that within yourself. All my
generator, that's what it is. Sorry, generator.
Generator, yeah. All 3 of my kids are projectors. I'm a generator too, so I've been trying to figure out what that means, because it's such a different beast. Because we live in a generator world.
I know, and I was like, I'm such a generator. And then when she said that, I was like, this has to be wrong. Like I reject my human design.
Right. Yeah, there are some elements that are definitely a little bit trickier to integrate, but it's all good. I had to ask because I'm super into human design as well. So curious.
It's so spot on. The more that I learn about myself, and not even that title, but then when you get into the heart center and the sacral or whatever, and I was like, oh, like I learned I'm a verbal processor. I'm like, that makes so much sense. So
so good. Well, tell us how, before I ask you my last question, my $1 million question, tell us how, besides the podcast, people can find you and learn more about your program if they're interested in getting coached by you and getting their VA business off the ground.
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is J Jessica Coaching. That's a great way. Also Facebook. I just use those two. I'm on TikTok, but I don't really like TikTok. I have my content person put stuff out there, but I don't really vibe with it. So yeah, Instagram, Facebook, and then my Facebook is facebook.com/Jade.Elsberry, Elsberry.
Okay, I'll be sure and put that in the show notes as well. All right, you ready for my question?
Yes.
All right, Jade, what is an empowered woman?
Oh my goodness. I actually have a sign right here. Empowered woman, empower women.
Oh,
I think an empowered woman is someone that does what is right for themselves. And like even when I was starting off as a VA and I hired this client, I ended up firing her after 2 weeks. She was horrible, but she was like, "Oh, look at you, like trying to start your VA business and you're a mom." And like kind of like patting me on the head about it. And, I think like as a mom, like starting out, I just had that thing of like, I can't get as great results, or who am I to be doing this? And so I really think an empowered woman is putting their desires first and tuning out the other people that are not supporting them and are always going to advocate what is best for themselves and keep persevering no matter what comes their way.
yeah. I totally stand by that. We're always going to have people that don't understand the vision. I love whatever quote or meme that says your calling was not a conference call. It was just a call between you and God. People don't need
Yeah.
to understand the vision. Some people will support and vouch for you, and some won't, and that's
Yeah.
okay. Just keep
Yeah.
forward.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. I hope this episode empowered you. And if you enjoyed the show, please join the Empowered Woman community on Facebook and share with friends or leave a review on iTunes so more people can discover this empowering message. Until next time, bye.